With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Season 13 of Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We've got a great show for you this evening. I'm going to be starting things off once again with a great discussion on the Coach's Corner panel, and I'm joined by one of my favorite panelists, Pete Buchanan. I'll tell you a little bit about him in just a moment. And then once again, golf fitness expert Bob Forman is going to be joining me a little bit later on to talk about some more great tips to get you in shape this year so you can do your best when you're out in the golf course and feel your best, of course, throughout the season. And then finally, at the end of the latter part of the show, not the end, I'm going to be speaking with two featured guests tonight. John Leahy, he is the Western Golf Association Director, and Kevin Flowers, the newly awarded Evans Scholar. Talk about that as well a little bit. They're going to be joining me on the latter half of the show, so I hope you stick around for that. But don't forget to tune in every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central right here on the Riverside.fm network. Best way to tune into the broadcast, or if you want to see the broadcast, it's entirely, if you want the video version, you can go to our YouTube channel, iGolf Sports, or you can go to Spotify and just look up Golf Talk Live. If you want to hear the audio only, if you're driving or something and you want to listen to it and you have Bluetooth ability, you can do so by going to Spreaker.com, or basically wherever you listen to podcasts. If you got an iPhone, you can go to Apple Podcasts as well, and you can catch the audio versions there. Basically anywhere that you're listening to the audio podcast, you can pick us up. So, but glad you could join us tonight. I'm going to introduce Pete, and then we're going to get into tonight's Coach's Corner panel discussion. So Pete, as I mentioned, is become a good friend of mine here and a favorite on the panel. He's been teaching this great game of golf now for over 30 years. He's the founder, director of instruction for Plain Simple Golf, and Plain Simple Golf houses the Plain Simple Golf Circuit and the Simple Swing Repeater Training Brace. And Pete's been helping golfers around the globe focus on building a repeatable swing. So, Pete, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ted, it's great to be here. Looking forward to it.
All right. Always glad to have you on. As I said, you've fast become one of my favorites here on the show. You've always got some great insight, and always look forward to having you as one of the Coach's Corner guests here. So we're going to talk about tonight some tips on how to improve on-course golf strategy. So we're going to talk about on-course strategy. Got a number of points that we're going to cover here. And then I've got some bonus tips as well for the listeners out there if we have time. So
Sure.
The first one, I know this is going to be right up your wheelhouse. And I think really these are all factors that I think, if ingrained correctly, can help with your strategy on course. So one of them, of course, is to learn to become a master, if you will, at the short game. And that's a variety of different areas of the short game, obviously putting, chipping, short pitch shots and things like that. You really want to be able to dial in on those. Talk a little bit about that, because, again, we see so many golfers, Pete, that go out, to the driving range. The first club they're pulling out is their driver. And, they only hit a few drives on any given round, but yet they seem to spend most of their time, trying to hit the big shots with their driver. instead of focusing on the area. So talk about why it's important for particularly becoming a better player, why you need to really dial in on your short game.
Well, I think if you look at the overall scoring, you're going to find probably 70 to 75% of your shots are going to be inside of about 50 yards.
Right.
So right away, if you're looking at scoring itself, I would be spending some time inside of 50 yards. That's where you can save the most strokes. That's where you can gain the most confidence. And that's where you can also take the pressure off your long game. Because if your short game is really good, then your long game, you can pretty much, have a little bit more freedom with it because, you can make it up in the short shots. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the number of times I look down the driving range and I'll see people hitting it. I'll see 25 or 30 people along the tee line and 28 of them have drivers in their hands. And and our short game is the least used facility in the area. And we've got one of the best short game areas around anywhere. Great turf, 2 bunkers, 3 greens, 15,000 square foot putting green. And, it's just amazing how many times they just don't utilize what's going on, especially just, take yourself 10 yards off the green. I mean, how many shots can you save if you just get to where from inside of 10 yards, you've got great control over what's going on. And you can use the same technique 10 yards off the green of putting that you do in chipping. You can use the same stroke. Yep. All you have to do is understand what a lofted club will do with that same stroke with a slightly different setup. But yeah, those shots are, if you want to be a good player, I've never seen anybody shoot a low round that didn't putt and chip and pitch well. Never.
Yeah.
Or the case, just simply putt well. The tour players spend a tremendous amount of time on pitching, and when they play their best, they don't have any.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because when they play their best, they hit 16, 17, 18 greens. And, the shot, they might have 1 chip or 2 chips, or they might have a putt off the fringe. But, they spend a tremendous amount of time because not only does it enhance their scoring abilities, but those shots in their slowed down version create greater feel for motion, which fuels back into their full swing. So I think it's the spending more time with the short game is not only going to produce greater scoring opportunities, but it's also going to create more feel for controlling the golf ball.
Yeah, and you raised some excellent points. I think really what I find, the same as you do, I look down the tee box and on the range, and I just see driver after driver. And I get it. It's nice to hit some drives, but when you're spending, if you're spending 30 minutes on the practice tee and you're spending the majority of that time, hitting your driver, and you're not spending, I'm the same as you, the practice area that's close near me, it's got a couple of greens, actually several greens, bunkers, that sort of thing. And I hardly ever see anybody there. I might see one guy, and he's got pretty much, one of the whole greens to himself. Another, I never see anybody hitting bunker shots. Yeah, it's been, the bunkers have been there for, Lord knows now, how long. I never see anybody in there hitting bunker shots. So, and again, even putting, I see people go out and hit a few putts, and then they're walking off and they're out ready to play. And I know, you can't get into a full practice session, right before you're getting ready to play, because you don't want to start tinkering around too much. But at the same time, if you've got some time, get up there and work on that short game, because again, over 50% of all golfers, and I'm talking amateur golfers, struggle to break 100.
Absolutely.
So, if half of the golfing population can't break 100, there's a reason to it. And it's not because they can't hit their driver. It's because they can't recover from where the driver went.
That's right.
A lot of times. And that's important. So, become a master of the short game, I think is better. And again, nobody's going to be perfect, but I think the more you practice and get out there and work on some of those short little shots, and you can do things to make it fun. We've talked about that. Another one I want to talk about too is strategic shot planning. This is one where, it takes a little bit of thought. You get out there, you're faced with different conditions, and you can do this on the range as well, where you sort of visualize the shot that you need to play. So you've hit your tee shot. Now you've got another shot. What shot are you going to play now? And sometimes you need to even do that, back it up a little bit before you even get to the hole. You need to sort of think to yourself, okay, here's hole number 3. It's a dog leg, right. It's a par 4, there's bunkers here. But how do you map out let's put together a game plan for each hole, especially if it's your home course. You should already have this in your mind. But I think that's another area too. If you want to become a better on-course strategist, you need to start planning your shots a little bit better for your round. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny you came up with this because just that's probably about a week and a half ago, one of my clients was playing in a tournament at his home club, and I went ahead and took the Google Maps of each hole. I took the tee boxes that he was playing.
I'm not sure, but looks like
we decided to go through
Pete,
and try to figure out for his game, how are we going to play each one of these holes? And I looked at it in two phases. One, how would I do it? And then two, how would we go about, strategizing for him, how he would go about and play these holes. And so I drew out each hole, and I looked at it from a tee box from the tees he was playing, understood how far he would hit it off the tee. And then, especially that very first hole, at the very first hole from his tee box, he could drive it down 40 yards from the green. And it's one of the hardest greens to putt on the course. And you got a 40-yard pitch shot and you haven't even done anything yet. And I told him, I said, you need to hit a long iron off the tee, hit a 110 or 120 yard shot into the green that you can control better. That way you have a better chance of putting this ball in a place on the green where you're not going to three putt off the start. And then so many of the holes, and I would probably say, as you're looking at, each one of the holes you're playing and some greens that are undulated, Sam Snead had a great line a long, long time ago. He said, they can't hide the pin from you if you hit it in the center of the green. And so it's, it's a lot of time, look at the middle. Where's the middle of the green? And hit the ball to the middle of the green. Also, depending on what club you're using. If you're using 7.65 iron, you should always be going for the center of the green. If you're using 8-9 wedge, sand wedge, now you can maybe hunt a pin depending on where that pin is, where the trouble is, and so on and so forth relative to what you're doing. But I would challenge anybody to start off, just go out the next time you play and hit it in the center of every green and see how much better you play. Right in the middle.
Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. We missed you a little bit on the first front side of the discussion.
Sorry about that.
Of that question, it froze up a little bit. So hopefully we'll see if it comes through in the finished product. But we got the best part of it. Let's put it that way. So not a problem. Okay. So the next question I want to address, or the next point I want to address rather, is and there is an appropriate time to do this, obviously in a playing lesson or with your swing coach. And that is, it's okay to experiment with your swing a little bit. And what I mean by that is, if you've really been struggling making good, solid ball contact, there is an appropriate time to get together with your coach and say, I'm really struggling making good contact. Let's take a look at my swing. Is there some things, maybe do we need to shorten it up a little bit? Am I getting too long in the backswing? So there is a time where we might want to be able to experiment, make some adjustments, and then work on that. And I don't mean that just before you're about ready to play, but I'm talking at some point in the process, because I think once you tighten that up a little bit, then you can play with a little bit more confidence when you get out on the golf course, and you can be a little bit more strategic in how you play, how you strategically plan your shots and so forth. But if you're still struggling with your golf swing because you haven't quite gotten it tightened up the way you need it to be, then you can run into some problems. So what do you think about that? And how do you address that? Because again, you don't want somebody out there monkeying around with things when they're out there playing, but there might be an appropriate time when you're going to get together with them and say, let's tighten this up a little bit.
Well, the one thing I do with all the players that I have is I teach them a go-to shot. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have a ball flight that you can go to that you're confident with, that when everything else breaks down, this is what you go to. And whether it's something that's a little shorter, something that's a little bit more of a curve, some type of shot pattern that they are confident in that they can pull off, which would be a slight bit of a change from what their normal routine is when they're playing. But, when you're not playing well, you need to get out of the norm. There's something going wrong there. So we need to make a change. But I always give them a go-to shot. And I know I have one. Mine's a little bit of a pull fade. It's something that I know I can pull off all the time when things aren't right. Doesn't go as far as the other shots that I hit. Mm-hmm. That's okay. I just take more club. But giving them something that they're really confident in, that they know they can do as a backup for when they're playing and things aren't going as well as they'd like to. But they also have to put that into their practice too. They have to practice that all the time so they have that backup for themselves when they're out there. And, the best time to experiment too is, if you're going to get confident in being able to change something and make it happen, there's no better place to do it than while you're playing. Get out there and get a little pressure on yourself and see if you can pull it off. And if you can't, that just means you haven't practiced it enough. So you got to go back to the range and practice a little bit more and just get into the habit of, understanding, what your norms are. And then if those are a little bit falling off, you need to have something you can go to that will enable you to play. And I know there's some higher handicappers out there and they're say, my normal's not even a go-to. So I don't know what you're talking about, but no,
Right.
but you have to get to that point. If you really want to score better, you're going to have to figure out, here's a little shot I can hit. It might be my 9-iron goes 100 yards. This one only goes 70, but I know I can do it all the time. So I'm going to make this swing and I'm going to take a little bit more club and see if I can't get myself back into some rhythm, back into some more confidence as I'm moving around the golf course.
That's a really interesting point because, I remember years ago on the Golf Channel, and I've talked about this. In fact, I had him as a guest some years back, but Wally Armstrong, who used to be on the Golf Channel, he talked about, actually he did a session on the Golf Channel one evening, and he actually had a 7-iron, a pitching wedge, and a putter, and he played 3 holes, a par 3, 4, and a 5, and actually ultimately, I'll keep it short, but he ended up scoring 1 under. And the point that he was trying to prove is that he hit the 7-iron off of every tee, and sometimes he had to hit it 2 or 3 times. Like on the par 5, he had to hit it 3 times to get it on there. And then, but on that par 5, he ended up putting for a birdie because he got his 7-iron close enough on the 3rd shot. And on the par 4, he got there in 2 with a 7-iron. It was not obviously the holes were a little bit shorter than what they are today. But the point that he was saying was that, if you're somebody that's struggling with your tee shots, why pull the driver out and hit it, 250 yards and 50 yards of it being to the right? Correct. So, now you're out of bounds or you're in some of that. So he said, if you got to pull your 8-iron out or 6-iron, if you're, comfortable hitting, those irons, hit those off the tee and then work on the other at an appropriate time, but get yourself into play because, and again, he hit some great shots with those irons and ended up playing 3 holes and ended up ultimately with 1 under par over the 3 holes. So again, he showed very easily you could make par or better on any golf course, pretty much regardless of the length, if you were just willing to be smart about it and use a little strategy. And that's really what we're talking about here. So,
yes.
Right. And 2 points I want to bring up real quick, and you're welcome to comment, and then we're going to move on to some of the bonus ones. But number one is, you want to develop a repeatable pre-shot routine. We've talked about this, I know, to death on here, but there's a reason for it. And then the other one, which touches on what you were just talking about, and that is practice with purpose. If you're going to go out and practice, do it with purpose. Don't just go up bang and, rake and hit balls. Get out there and put a game plan together and say, I'm going to put a practice session together, whether it's with your coach or not. But get out there and practice with purpose. So do you want to comment on either one of those or both? You're welcome to.
Oh, there's no question. Pre-shot routine is what settles you into what you're doing. That's your comfort zone. And so to ease yourself into playing, you got to have something that's repeatable and common to you. And, practicing with purpose is great because I just did a video today talking about, when you practice, you should think like a machine does. A machine, has a process to form a function for a result. And so the machine can never change the process. It does it over and over and over and over again. As a golfer, you have to keep the process going to get that function, to get the result. The problem is you see a ball flight you don't like and you change the process. Well, now all of a sudden you're getting so far away from where you were that no wonder you can't do it. So when you're going to practice, you got to have a process in place. Stick with that process and do it the whole time. Don't alter the process because that inevitably is going to take you further away from where you're trying to get. So yeah, great points there.
Yeah. And I think it just, I know we talk about this a lot on the show, but it's because I really want for it really to be hammered home for people to understand, those 2 points is, if you don't have a consistent pre-shot routine, it could be whatever it is that works for you. But you have to work on that because if you look at the professionals, and I get it, not everybody's going to become a professional, but if you look at it, they go through that routine, the exact same routine for every single shot. And if something throws them off, then they start and repeat it over again. They don't just pick up from where they left off. Right. So, and there's a reason they do that because it gets them settled, as you suggest. and it gets them organized and gets their thoughts together for, okay, here's the shot I've got. Here's how I've got to get my mindset ready. And here's what I need to do to get prepared. And they go through that pre-shot routine. And it doesn't take very long. It might be 30 seconds, it might be 20 seconds, it might be 45 seconds, whatever. But it's something that they do, and they repeat it for every single shot, exactly the same. So you have to practice that. And that's when you get up, on the practice tee and you work on those things. Practicing with a purpose, again, we've talked about that as well many times. And again, there's no point just going up to the range and hitting a bucket of balls and not really putting any thought behind it, because you're just going to find yourself, making the same old mistakes. You're not preparing yourself. And it's not about becoming necessarily just a better ball striker. It's about becoming a better player. But you first have to be able to hit the ball well. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to be able to make consistent contact with the golf ball. So that takes some practice, but you got to do that methodically and not just, sort of rake and hit balls. So we're going to get into some of the bonus ones here I've got for you, Pete, as well. Cool. This is one, again, I think that a lot of people don't have. And if you want to be and improve and increase your on-course strategy, you've got to do this. And that is, you have to know your numbers. You have to know how far you're hitting each of your clubs. And I want you to touch, I'm not going to give it away, but there's a specific understanding of the distance that you're hitting them. There's two different categories, if you will. And I'm going to get you to talk about both of those. You know what I'm talking about. And that is your carry and your ultimate, with roll and so forth. What's important? Why is it important? And how important is it to know your numbers?
Well, without the numbers, what club are you going to pick? Right. So, especially when I used to go out and I'd say, how far does your 7-iron go? Anywhere between 100 and 160 yards. And I'm like, well, when do you know when to hit it? How do you, what are you hitting at 40 yards over the green or 20 yards short? So you have to get some consistency of what your numbers are doing, not only in the direction they go, but how they fall, how they fly. So you need to understand the overall carry number. Obviously, the rollout with the irons isn't going to be as far as the rollout with the fairway woods and the driver and some of the hybrids, but you need to understand how far they're going to carry, because that's going to set you up for the type of shots you're going to play. And I would always say this, especially to anybody who's and it could be even better players, anybody who's a 10 handicap or higher, I would always take one more club into the green than what you think. Yep. Because inevitably the tour players are 6 to 8 yards short of what their yardage is on average when they play.
Yep.
So if they're 6 to 8 yards short, the amateurs are 8 to 20 yards short.
Right.
So that's 1 to 3 clubs more. So you should at least take one more club so that you can understand that, hey, what's my maximum here, and understanding, a little bit about, what you can do. There may be a range in your area that has a top tracer or has, some kind of, maybe one of the simulators has, the ball flight numbers you can get in there and start to get an idea of how far they go. But it's important to understand that, because you've got to be able to know what clubs to hit. That's going to help a little bit in the confidence of what clubs you're hitting, but you need to know the carry. So then you need to know where to put it relative to where the green is, the hole is, what's going on. That's definitely something that you have to work on. And obviously you have to get better at ball striking to get more consistent with what they do. But that's just a piece of the process of understanding how far they go. But I think, to me, more than anything else, I think the carry numbers are more important, because you're going to have more carry numbers with the iron shots that you're hitting into the green. And for most of us amateur players, or most of the amateur players, it's going to be 7-iron on down. So you need to understand what those carry numbers are. And the rollout a little bit, that's fine. The driver's going to roll, the 3-wood's going to roll a little bit. But I think carry, to me, is more important of those stats, of understanding how far your ball's going to go.
Yeah, and that's well said, because, again, a lot of people, when they look at this and they're looking at the numbers to carry the green, let's say, and, to the front of the green, it's 135 yards from where they're at, and they've got a bunker to go over. But the pins may be, cut at 155. And so they're thinking, okay, I'm going to hit that, my 7-iron because I hit it 155. But, that's maybe once in a blue moon. Maybe they're actually only hitting it, 140 or something. So that might be the right club in that particular case. But other scenarios where they might have, a little bit longer carry, and they're thinking because their carry distance is 155, but maybe it's 160 to the front of the green. And they think, okay, I'm going to try to get it on there and let it roll. And you might be lucky and it might happen. But again, if you're guessing all the time, and maybe that back lip of that bunker is 140 or 145, and now you're playing with fire a little bit, because if you don't quite carry it, now you're back in the bunker and quite possibly plugged into the lip. So you have to be careful of that. So knowing your numbers is good. Great points. If they've got Top Tracer or a simulator or something like that, they can get in there. And you need to, again, don't just because you hit one great shot say, okay, that's how far I hit my 7-iron, that's how far I hit my 8. You've got to take an average of all of your shots, right. And you've got to look at it percentage wise too, because if percentage wise, if you're hitting less than 30%, let's say, again, we'll use simple numbers, 150 is your 7-iron, and less than 30% of the shots are hitting at 150 yards, and the rest of them are going at 135 or 140 or whatever. That 30% is not how far you're hitting it. So you need to take a positive average of all of that, and you have to look at that. And a lot of people don't do that. So very, very important to do it. And I think when you know your numbers, then it gives you a little bit more confidence when you're making the right club selection, as you suggest. This is one here too. Again, really dials in for our high handicap golfers, but and that is don't be a hero. And what I mean by that is, again, don't think you have to go for the green or the pin or even the green. Sometimes there's so much trouble there, and you're maybe there's water around the green. You might have to lay up or something. So again, give us your thoughts here. We see a lot of heroes out there, but unfortunately, we see a lot of bad scores at the end of the day. So what are your thoughts here? What do we do for, if we're trying to be, encourage them to be well, but at the same time, not to go overboard?
Well, I think the first question you have to ask yourself is, in practice, on the range, if you can pull this off 6 or 7 times out of 10, then I would say you could probably maybe try it on the golf course. But if that percentage isn't there in practice, then I wouldn't do it on the course. And so with the trouble that's there, you're going to have to play away from it. Put the ball in a different place, lay it up like you said, shoot away from where the trouble is, and that's only one stroke, and it can save you 3 or 4. There's definitely ways to play, I would say, more defensive golf than offensive golf. Most of the higher handicappers are trying to play offensive golf, and it's just they just can't get it done. I would definitely look at each situation. Ask yourself, first of all, can you do it? And not that I saw it on TV. Can I do this? Yeah. And in practice, have I ever done it before? And if you haven't ever done it before, that's a pretty good sign you probably shouldn't try it when you're out there playing. Because I know there's some that will try it. I think I can hit it over that tree. When that 40 years ago, you could hit it over that tree. It's a tall tree now, but you can't do it now. So it's all a matter of, any shot that you see, those miraculous shots on TV, they've practiced those time and time again. They're never going to pull off a shot on TV that they haven't practiced. They know, especially if you watched the Open last week, you can figure that out. You can't be a genius out of that rough. You just got to put it back in the fairway. That stuff was nasty. So, so the higher handicappers are tenfold. They got to play safe.
Yeah, and that's again some great analysis. Is if you're a high handicapper and you know that the percentage is against you to pull off a specific shot, then why are you trying to do that? You're wanting to. The number one thing I hear people, besides obviously hitting the ball further, is that they want to be able to score better. But yet they keep making the same mistakes all the time. They keep taking risks that are unnecessary. You might get a par 3 and let's say you've got water around the side and in the front, and there's a sort of a layup area to the right of the green. Hit for that layup area. And if you happen to get lucky and you pull a little bit and it goes far enough and it gets on the green, great. If you push a little bit, as long as you factor in, your pros and cons or your pluses and minuses either way, even if you push it a little bit, you're probably still going to be safe. And now you've got a little bit of a chip or a short pitch shot, onto the green now, and you've avoided a lot of that trouble. So don't be a hero, play smart. And that's really, again, delves into what we're talking about here is if you want to improve your on-course strategy, then you have to be able to do some of the things that we're talking about. this one is, Pete, might seem kind of out there, but you got to respect the course. There's some tough courses out there.
Yes, there are.
And some challenging courses. And, these architects are not doing it so that people can bulldoze over and shoot super low scores. They're doing it. They want it to be a challenge.
Right.
And so you've got to respect the course. And again, it goes to what we're talking about is you got to be smart when you're playing around there. So if you're getting on a challenging course, what would be the number one thing that you would tell somebody if they're, maybe not a great golfer, maybe they're high handicap, or maybe they're 15 to 20 handicap, and they're going to play a difficult course. It's a resort course. Maybe they want to get out there and, old Pete Dice put some good stuff together, and they want to get out there and have a good time. What would be some advice that you would give them?
I'll tell you a classic example of that. A couple of Octobers ago, I took my son and my now son-in-law, and we played TPC Tampa Bay.
Oh, yeah.
And I told them, I said, listen, we're going to play a tee box so that when you miss your drives, you're past the water.
Yep.
There's no reason for you to hit all your drives in the water all day long. It's going to be frustrating. You're not going to have any fun, and none of us are going to have any fun. And I'm going to play the same tees you do because I don't want to hit it in that water either. So sometimes you can move up a set of tees on a difficult golf course, shorten the course.
Yep.
Most of the time, you'll put yourself on a tee box. Now you're driving it past all the trouble. And so that's something to take into consideration. If it's really, really hard, I tell people all the time, you remember the old seniors and super seniors when they played? I think the super seniors played, 6,100, 6,000 yards?
Yep.
If those professionals were playing that length, as you're getting up there, you should be playing 57, 56, 55. Don't play any par threes above 150 yards.
Yep.
Look on the scorecard, look across. Where is it where no par threes more than 150? And let's play those tees today and make it fun. Make it fun. Get up there. So my advice on the difficult ones is make it as short as you possibly can. I think that's going to put you out of the trouble areas. And then again, as we just talked about, around the greens, if there's water, if there's trouble, just play away from it. You
got to be, again, it all boils down. You have to be smart about what you're doing. And again, so many people, I see it all the time. I'll watch the groups in front, and even sometimes when, there's a bit of a backlog or whatever, and I'll look back and watch the guys playing up behind me, and I'll watch some of the stuff, and, you'll get some guy and, he'll be out in the middle of the fairway and he's quite a ways back, and I'll see him pulling out his fairway woods. Sometimes I'll even see him pull out a 3-wood, if it's a long enough hole. And, sometimes you'll get a guy that hits a good shot and it comes up and, somewhere around the green, but more often than not, they're duffing it, they're topping it, or they're hitting a screamer along the ground. It might go up 100 yards. Right. And I'm just sitting there thinking, you've got 200 yards, 225 yards to the green. If you can't hit that shot with confidence, you need to respect the course. Right. And you need to say, okay, let me break this up into 2 shots. So I know if I've got 225, I knew 110 or 105 is my go-to shot. So break the difference. I'm going to hit, my first shot here, instead of trying to scream at 225 yards. If I've got a 105, I'm going to hit this shot 120 yards, land up in that 105 spot. Right. Now I can pull up my wedge, and I've got a good chance of getting on the green. So maybe you only make a par on that par 5 instead of getting the birdie, but at least you've avoided, a pack of trouble. So you need to be respectful, or you got fairway bunkers and things. Again, lay up, don't hit your driver out there. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say, it's exactly that. Most of the time they're going to try to take the long one for the glory, but you got to respect the score in the end. So, take what the golf course is giving you and respect the yardage, and, play 2 shots instead of trying to make one miraculous one.
Yeah. Again, even if worst case scenario, if you come away with the bogey, if worst case scenario, maybe your putts don't go the way they want, it could have been worse. It could have been a snowman.
Sure.
Or it could have been worse than that. So, you got the lesser of 2 evils. The last one we're going to wrap up with is, and this is one Jack Nicklaus, many have said this, but Jack Nicklaus famously talked about this in Golf My Way and others, is that he always visualized the shots. This is something too a lot of golfers don't do, is they don't sit there, they don't get behind, and it doesn't matter whether it's a putt, whether it's a chip shot or a full shot. you need to visualize, imagine the shot that you want to hit. Now, you may not necessarily pull it off, but you have to have some visualization. Nicholas talked about this a lot in his career, and there was a reason for it. He never hit a shot until he was able to visualize it in his mind's eye before he stepped up to that ball, and there was a reason for it. What are your thoughts here? Do you agree with that? Is that something that you think all golfers really need to pay attention to, and why is it important, do you think?
Well, that's a great point, and I think Jack not only visualized the shots he was playing, he visualized the shots before he even played. He and Tiger prepared so much more before they got to the golf course than anybody else, because they took the golf course apart before they ever played it. And you have to, first and foremost, I'd say you need to visualize the shot and ask yourself, can I do it? I mean, that to me for the higher handicappers is the number one. Can I actually pull this off? Then you need to visualize shots you can pull off.
Yeah.
So picture something you can do and then go ahead and do it. I think it's always important to have an understanding, and it can work both ways. It can work positive and negative. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody step up on the first tee and they slice it off in the trees and they said, oh, I'm going to hit another one. And they don't take a practice swing, or they don't stop or do anything, and they hit the ball, the second one, right next to the one in the trees they just hit. They did the exact same thing. So you have to be able to stop for a minute. I don't think you're going to stand on the tee and picture hitting in the woods. So get the right picture. Can I hit this picture? And then what club do I need for the picture that I just did? And it's not always going to be driver. And so you have to look at what you can do and what you can't do. And I mean, when I was playing professionally, pitching was never my forte. I like to bump and run the ball all over the place. And so I would never leave the ball in a situation where I had to pitch it, which was difficult for me. So if it was a par 5 and I couldn't get there in 2, I'd lay it up 120 yards away. I just didn't want to deal with less than full swings. I wasn't the best at those. And so I just played away from them. And so I could continually score. I constantly worked at it, but it wasn't the sharpest part of my game. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the best part. So I just stayed away from it. So I think in that case, visualizing, what you want to do, can you do it? What club do I need for this? And then take off and do it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing Nicholas always talked about was to play to your strengths, whatever that may be. Again, if pitching is not your forte, then you play to the strengths, the rest of your game. You look at where your strong areas in your game, and you use those to your advantage. But the idea is you want to develop a good on-course golf strategy. And one of the ways to do that is, again, even if you're playing a course that you play every day or every week, take a look at that scorecard and look at the distance on the holes and say, okay, how can I play this differently than I have before? I'm stuck hitting, a 20 handicap, and I want to improve my handicap. I want to do a better job. So maybe one of the options, okay, next time I play, I'm going to move up a tee box and see how that works. And instead of trying to go for the green in 2, I'm going to chop it up and maybe get on the green in 3, even on the par 4s. I'm going to try to do it in such a way that I'm going to improve that. And, for some guy that's struggling to break 100, even struggling to break 90, may find that his scores are going to drop considerably just by playing a little bit more strategy when he gets out in the golf course. And that's really what it's all about. And that's what all these tips that we're talking about here are really designed to do. And that is to, work on your short game, develop that pre-shot routine, plan out your shots, think about what you want to do and make sure that the shots you're planning out are shots that you're have a high percentage of being able to pull them off. Always practice with purpose, as we talk about. Certainly make adjustments to your swing if necessary, preferably not during your round, but those are things that you might have to do. Got to know your numbers, got to know what you have to dial into, and you have to be honest about that. And don't try to, as I said, be a hero and hit shots that you're not capable of hitting just because you want to try to shoot lower score. Respect the course, of course. You've got to look at all of the potential hazards that may be out there and be mindful of that when you're making your strategy or your plans, and then visualize the shots as Nicholas did. If one of the best players, or the best player, in my opinion, in the world had to do that, then why shouldn't you, right? So absolutely. I think you have to look at it that way. But very interesting. Always appreciate your thoughts and input on that. And as always, I'm going to give you a chance to let the listeners know if they want to reach out, Pete, as we wrap up, and where they can get in touch with you. And if there's anything special that you want to plug, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Ted. It's always a pleasure being on, and all of us from this end of the show appreciate what you do and how you run this. It's great for us to be to participate in it. They can reach me at PeteBuchananGolf.com. I just signed on to be an ambassador with XView on their 3D software, so that's some things that are coming down the road. Working with Golf Live now to do some more online, more broadcasting, get the word out a little bit more. So keep an eye on that. There might be some things down the road. We're going to be doing some, I think we got a mental golf class we're setting up. I think we're going to do with one of my big time players who's deep into that. So it'll be a nice broadcast for people to watch. And, other than that, like I've always said, reach out. Let's just start a conversation. I mean, the more we can talk about your game in today's technology, in today's world, we can get to anybody, anywhere, anytime. And it's just like being there. So, we can set up, watch it, we can capture it, we can talk about it, we can show it back to you. So, the technology today is great. So, don't hesitate.
Yeah, it's amazing now what technology is able to bring, not only shows like this, but online platforms like you're talking about to be able to communicate with players and students and things like that. It's just, from all over the globe. It's just amazing, really, when you think of the technology, and it's only going to get better as time moves on. So appreciate it as always. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when I come back, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest, golf fitness expert, Bob Forman will be joining me here coming up next. So hope you'll stick around. And welcome back, everybody. I'm excited now to be joined once again by my good friend, golf fitness expert, Bob Forman. He's the former director of fitness and wellness for the Congressional Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland. He's also internationally known as a leader in the fitness of golf, in the field, of golf fitness. And his programs have been recognized multiple years in a row by the Golf Fitness Association of America. He holds a Master's of Science degree in exercise physiology and is certified golf fitness instructor through TPI, or Titleist Performance Institute. And he's also a certified personal trainer through the American College of Sports Medicine. And he also is an author, forgot to mention the last few times, functional golf fitness training. And you can get that at thebookpatch.com. We'll tell you a little bit more about that as we progress through the show. But Bob, welcome back.
Hey, Ted, it's good to be back. Thanks. Yeah,
we had a little bit of a break. I had to not do a show. I was had an outside engagement, so we had to cancel one of the shows. So we're picking up the next time here, but I appreciate it. Now, when we were last on air together, we talked about fitness must-haves for a better golf swing, and I think there's about 12 of them here, and I think we finished off with number 5, which is the X factor. So what I'm going to do is, just for those that are tuning in, maybe we'll touch on that one a little bit. Again, we'll start off with that one this time and then try to progress through the remainder. So you want the ability to disassociate your upper body from the lower body. Jim McLean always talked about the X factor. What are we talking about here, and why is that important, and how is that going to help us improve our golf swing?
Well, the X factor, like you say, Jim McLean is the guy who kind of invented that or developed it. I mean, if you had a camera and you place it over the golfer as they're swinging the golf club, their shoulders and their hips are going to be rotating to the right for a right-handed golfer. The shoulders will be rotating a little bit more than the hips. Mm-hmm. And eventually you would see an X kind of form between the shoulders and the hips. And again, looking down from above. The difference between the angle of the shoulders and the hips is called the X factor angle. Mm-hmm. And the greater the angle a golfer can develop, the more club head speed they're going to be able to incorporate on the golf ball in the downswing phase.
Right.
So it's important to kind of have that flexibility, that range of motion, that stability to disassociate the upper body and the lower body so that you can develop that X factor angle.
Yeah, and you touched on, and this really comes into our next point. You talk about really having a fair degree of rotational movement in the shoulders. A lot of times we see, and this is one I've seen so many times, where people will just move their arms back and not really actually rotate the shoulders. And they think they've got a shoulder turn or they've got a good backswing, but really all they've done is they've just picked the club up and their arms have gotten them up to the top, but the shoulders have barely moved, maybe 10, 15 degrees, when really they should be moving considerably more. So is there something that we can do to help work on that? Is there an exercise or a group of exercises maybe that could help with the shoulder rotation?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of exercises, and specifically for the shoulder, you're looking for what's called external shoulder rotation. So you want to be able to rotate your arm back, externally to have that range of motion, because in the backswing, you're going to externally rotate your trail side shoulder, right shoulder for a right-handed golfer. And on the downswing, you're going to externally rotate that target side shoulder, left shoulder. So you need a fair degree of range of motion in the shoulder joint to be able to kind of make that good shoulder turn. And in addition to that, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about this because this is another must-have, is mid-back range of motion as well to help enhance that shoulder turn. But yeah, there are exercises, stretches that you can do to enhance. One good one is called the open book, which the golfer is laying on their side in the fetal position. The arms are straight out in front of them with the elbows bent at 90 degrees. And then they're bringing the top arm over to the opposite side, maintaining the angles in the shoulder and getting a good stretch in through the chest and also working that external shoulder rotation. But you go online there, and again, on the website, there's a bunch of articles in there that show different exercises and explain the significance of mobility for the shoulder joint.
Yeah, we'll give them that information when we're getting close. Close to wrapping up, so that they can have that and go and check out some of the articles that you put together. The other one too, and since we're talking about the upper body, which obviously is important, but the lower body is important as well. And one of the other points that you have is having adequate glute strength, and which obviously helps with your lower body stability. And you want to be able to avoid excessive lateral movement. We see a lot of people swaying in the backswing for a number of reasons. One, incorrect, understanding of the swing mechanics, but a lot of it too is because they're lacking in certain strength in the lower body, and they're compensating by swaying in order to basically make it feel better, and are really missing out on loading up some of that extra stored power. So talk about that. Talk about the glutes. Talk about some of the other things with the hips and that create some of the lower body issues.
Yeah, well, you have three glute muscles. You have the gluteus maximus, which is the largest muscle in the body. You have the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus. And, the TPI calls those the grandfather of the golf swing. One specific one that I tend to isolate with a lot of golfers because they tend to have a lot of weakness in the glutes. And a lot of us are weak because we sit a lot during the day. Yeah. And when you sit, you elongate the glute muscle. And over time, when you elongate a muscle, you weaken it. So the glutes are important to help you maintain that lower body while you're twisting the upper body, going back to that disassociation between the upper and lower body. But like I said, one of the biggest ones is that gluteus medius. And it's important because it's a hip stabilizer. All right. So it'll maintain the hip, and it also can have an impact on the knee as well. Right. If your gluteus medius is weak, it can allow rotation of the thigh bone, the femur, which can cause knee issues. But most of the exercises that golfers do in the gym is kind of in a north-south range of motion. And, in order to get the gluteus medius is you want to work more east and west. So a really good exercise that probably we all should be doing because we all need to strengthen that gluteus medius are those side steps that we have discussed in the past. Getting a band wrapping it around the ankles, tying it with your feet together, and then just doing side steps, 10 to 15 to 20 side steps in one direction, and then coming back and doing the 10 to 15 to 20 side steps back in the other direction. And I guarantee that most golfers out there, when they first do that, will be able to identify where their gluteus medius is because it'll talk to them. The other one is the bigger guy, the gluteus maximus, and, bridges, lying on your back, feet flat on the floor, heels close to the body, lifting the hips up into the air. That's a bridge exercise. That'll isolate the glutes. You can do one at a time. When you're in that bridge, if you just kind of lift one leg up off the floor, that'll isolate the opposite side glute. So that's a good one to do as well. 3 sets, holding for 10 to 15 seconds on each. Real good exercise to help get those glutes activated.
Yeah, and I guarantee that's one, as you said, that's one area that probably the majority of people fail to think about, because let's be honest, we're sitting a good part of the day now working. Here we are, on our the podcast here. We're sitting on our glutes and talking golf and talking fitness particularly, and we should be out there doing something. So maybe in future podcasts, we're going to have to start doing some exercise while we're here talking, at least get us going. You also talk about not having sort of sufficient freedom of movement in the hips, and you talk about having more flexible inner hip rotators as well. So what are we talking about here? Where is that located? Obviously it's in the interior or internal rather, but what are we talking about here, and how does that sort of help sort of free up movement in our hips?
Yeah, well, hip rotation, hip mobility is really the first link of the kinetic chain. Once that golfer gets into the top of their backswing, the initial movement in the downswing should start from the ground up, right? That's the kinetic chain or the kinematic sequence. Mm-hmm. And that is initiated by a slight lateral bump of the hips, followed by the trunk, then the arms, then the golf club. And that's how you generate power and energy to the golf club. And hip mobility, there's really a focus on 3 different muscle groups, the hamstrings in the back of the thigh, which we discussed, the hip flexors, which are in the front part of the hip, and then your internal hip rotators, which are kind of like inside what are called the groin muscles, or the adductor, ADD, bringing the legs to the midline of the body, the adductor muscle groups. And I tell you, when I do my stretch classes and stuff and work with golfers, there are a lot of folks who are really tight in those adductor muscles in that groin area. And there are some really good, yeah. And any one of those by themselves, or usually you see it in combination. You're tight in your adductors, you're tight in your hamstrings. So any combination is going to limit that mobility of the hip, which again is going to impact your golf swing. So again, there's a lot of good stretches that you can do specifically, and you don't want to rule out working those adductors. A lot of people hit the hamstrings, they hit the hip flexors, but you got to include those groin muscles, those adductor muscles, with some range of motion flexibility exercises.
Yeah, it's really a full body, system that you have to work on, because everything's connected, and we have to be able to, you can't overdo one and then not do something with somewhere else, because you're going to spot the weaknesses pretty quick. I know recently I had a little tweak in my lower back, and so I got on the floor to do some stretches and that, and I was thinking to myself, good Lord, I need to do more of this and get down there and work on some of the things we're talking about. So that's going to be my thing to do here in the next little bit. But somewhere else too, people don't think about this as well, but you talk about here, another must-have is the forearm muscle strength and balance. Even though the forearms aren't connected to the golf club, they play a role as well. So give us your input here. What's your thoughts, and what do we need to do?
Well, when people think about forearm strength, they think about the flexors on the underside part of the forearm, and also the extensors on the back of the forearm. So, it's going to help with the gripping of the club. The other set of muscle groups that people don't usually think about are what, again, called the adductors. and the abductors. So your adductors are kind of along the inside border of the forearm, which bring the wrists towards the midline of the body, and the abductors, which are kind of on the outside part, thumb side of the forearm. And when you're swinging the golf club, I mean, you're kind of doing a lot of adduction, abduction, all right, in addition to some flexion, some extension. So it would be advantageous for the golfer to focus on all areas of the forearm, working the flexors, with gripping. We tend to be stronger on the flexors because we're constantly gripping things. And, that can lead to wrist and elbow and shoulder issues. So you really want to balance out the strength in the forearm by doing some extension exercises for the muscle groups in the top part of the arm, and to do some exercises for the adductors and muscle groups for the abductors. And, a real good exercise is just to take your driver, hold the end of the grip of the driver, keep your arms solid down at your side, and just kind of tap the driver behind you. Just tap the head of the driver on the floor, move it up and down. And that's going to work those ADD, those adductors. And you do that 15 to 20 times or so. And then you turn the driver around so that the club head is facing front. And you do the same thing to the front, where you tap the driver to the front. And again, there's a lot of articles on the website and stuff like that. I don't think I have one up on that yet, but I will put one up there after we get off here. But it's important to do, and that'll help with the grip, and it'll help you get some more distance down the fairway.
Yeah, we'll get that information to everybody after the show or after the segment, and get them going to the website to take a look at some of these different exercises that are going to help in these areas we're talking about. What are you talking about when you say, overall dynamic balance? Obviously we have to have good balance. I'm going to take a guess on this. Obviously everybody focuses on a lot of the big muscles. Are you talking about some of the smaller muscles here as well, about that in the dynamic? Is that something that we're talking about here, or are you talking about something different?
Well, I mean, static balance is being able to stand on one foot for 10, 15, 20 seconds. Okay. And static balance is good. I mean, we want to make sure we work on our balance, especially as we get older, because we don't want to fall and break something. Right. But, again, with the golf swing, you're moving multiple body parts in different directions in all three planes of movement. So you want to be able to, and if you got weight shifting going there, with the weight over onto the left side, right side. So you want to be able to maintain good balance. So static balance is good to have, yes, but dynamic balance, where there's movement involved while you're standing on that one foot, would be even better, because that's what you're going to do when you're swinging a golf club. So, for instance, standing on one foot, and while you're standing on that one foot, just rotate the upper body back and forth, 10 times or so, to see if you can maintain that balance, and then try it on the opposite foot. People will be surprised that they'll either be really good on both legs, they'll be really bad on both legs, or they'll be good on one and bad on the other. So again, the brain wants you to stay safe. If you're bad on let's say your target foot, again, your left foot for a right-handed golfer, and you're trying to shift that weight over to the left side in the downswing follow-through, but your balance is really not that good, your brain may kind of hold you back a little bit, in that movement pattern. And again, that's going to impact your ability to get the ball down the fairway.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, that you make, because that is a big issue for a lot of golfers, is to not have that dynamic balance. And it makes a lot of sense what you're talking about. Probably a must-have, Bob, if I was to hazard a guess, is this last one here is probably one that a lot of people don't even think about, and that is their cardiovascular fitness. We see a lot of golfers, especially as we get older, and they're puffing and wheezing by the time they hit the back nine, especially down here in the Southeast, where you got humidity now, and it's some stifling heat. You're out there, and obviously there's nutritional things that can help with that as well, that are important. But you also have to have your lungs have to be good and healthy, and And, so what are some things that we can do here to improve our cardiovascular fitness?
Yeah, I mean, if you're one of those golfers that's your front nine's great, but your back nine stinks, it might be your cardiovascular conditioning, and if you don't have that conditioning, you're going to suffer in terms of being able to move the body in the, again, multiple plane movement that the golf swing demands. So any type of cardiovascular exercise would be good to kind of get the heart and the lungs in shape and the blood flow through the body. If you can be specific to golf, walking would be great, especially if you like to walk the golf course. That will help improve your cardiovascular fitness, but riding a bike, stationary bike, ellipticals, Stairmasters, swimming, that's all good stuff to kind of help improve your cardiovascular conditioning levels, which will fight off fatigue, in the back nine, which will help your scoring and your playing performance.
Yeah. And again, I see a lot of, especially our senior golfers out there, and, some of them can only play 9 holes now because of that, because they just can't play 18 holes. And it's not a physical thing so much as that, they can still swing the club in that, but they don't seem to have the energy levels anymore. They're not walking very much. They're not doing any other exercise to keep, that cardiovascular muscles going, if you will, and get fatigued very easily, which obviously negatively impacts your golf swing in general. And as you point out, can increase the risk for injury as well. So
yes.
A lot of great must-haves here for better golf swings. And I think the question that most people have to ask is, how many of these must-haves are you missing? And the only way to find out is a golf fitness assessment is going to be able to tell you that, and you're the man to do that. So let's give them the website now as we get ready to wrap up. Where can they go to get some information, in general information, and also some of these exercises that you've been pointing to throughout the discussion tonight? And then also, if they're interested in getting a golf fitness assessment, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, the website is Golf Fit Carolina, and it's just one T, and it's GOLFIT Carolina. So golffitcarolina.com. And like I said, there's educational articles, there's some videos. I put all the podcasts on there that we're doing, so people can go back and take a look at some of the exercises that we've discussed over the past couple of months. So, that's a good resource for them. The book is also a good resource, has a lot of good exercises in there, little self-assessments that they can do to determine whether or not they're deficient in one or more of these kind of must-have areas. But also in your area, Tyler's Performance Institute has a website that you can go to, and you can find a trainer in your area. And you just kind of click on the location, and it will list trainers that are certified with TPI that can help you go through the assessment and give you exercises to improve upon those deficiencies.
Yeah, and the important thing I want to emphasize too for the listeners is these people that are TPI certified in that, such as yourself, are golf fitness certified. There's obviously general fitness and there certainly may be some crossovers, but you want to get somebody who is specifically trained in how to help improve your golf muscles, because there are certain movements and things in a golf swing that you don't typically do in everyday life. And you want to make sure the exercise that you're doing are conducive to helping your golf game. So you want to make sure that they're certified golf fitness professionals, not just any old fitness professional. And that's not to knock them, but it's just that they're more generally trained, and the TPI and that are specifically trained to.
And it's good. I mean, if your golf fitness professional knows something about the golf swing, some of the mechanics.
Yeah.
Not that they want to teach the mechanics piece
right.
of it, but
they have to have an understanding.
They can take a look at a video of your swing and kind of identify where your gross swing faults are and correlate that back to your physical deficiencies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, Bob, as always, thank you very much. And he'll be back in a couple of weeks with some more great tips and that. And on that note, we're going to take another commercial break. When I come back, I'm going to be speaking with tonight's featured guests, I hope you'll stick around for that as well. We'll be right back.
Improve your putting with the Alignment Ball Marker, a revolutionary new in-game putting alignment tool and ball marker. Its patented design allows you to read your putt and adjust your alignment at the same time by using your putter, which improves your accuracy and makes the process of putting faster. 100% legal according to the USGA, by their definition, permitted under the rules of golf. Winner of Best New Product at the PGA Show and only $9.99 on Amazon. And it's also completely customizable for any golf event or as a promotional giveaway. Order at alignmentballmark.com.
And I'm excited to have tonight's two featured guests. I'm going to introduce both of them here, and then we're going to get into a great discussion here on Golf Talk Live. First up, of course, is John Leahy. He is the WGA director at the Baltimore Country Club, also the president and founder at Target Market Group. Has a lot of experience, and he founded and built a Target Market Group back in 1986, which has become one of the top distributors of promotional merchandise in the country. And also he's been involved now for over a decade with WGA at the Baltimore Country Club. So we're glad to have him. Also, a newly awarded Evans Scholar from Baltimore Country Club is Kevin Flowers, who plans to study kinesiology, recently graduated from Loyola Blakefield in Towson, I believe it is, Maryland. I apologize if I said that incorrectly. He is the first in his family to attend college, and growing up in a single-parent household has shaped his views on education, he said. He was taught that hard work and good education are the keys to achieving your dreams, values that make him a better student, caddy, and athlete. So, Kevin, welcome to you, and John, welcome to you as well. I appreciate you coming on Golf Talk Live tonight.
Yep, thank you.
Anytime.
All right, appreciate it. So, I'm going to talk to John just briefly. I'm going to sort of pitch back and forth between the two of you for different things, obviously. But I just want to, John, maybe kind of give us an overview of the Evans Scholarship, sort of how it began, and just a little bit of the background, and sort of how long has it been going on, and what was the purpose of the scholarship program?
Okay, great. I'm glad you asked that question. The Evans Scholar program is named after a famous amateur golfer named Chick Evans from Chicago. Chick Evans was the first amateur golfer to win the U.S. Amateur and the U.S. Open in the same year. That was in 1916. As part of that winning, he had some royalties from a couple of sponsorships that they wanted to pay him, and if he took the money, he'd have to turn professional. His
Right.
mother suggested that he remain and keep his amateur status, that he would do something else with the money. So they forwarded the money into a scholarship fund for education. It was his mother's idea. So they had those funds put away for education, and then in 1930, the Evans Scholar Foundation started. And they awarded the first scholarship to two students at Northwestern University with that money. And the foundation was started then. By coincidence, Bobby Jones was the only other golfer ever to win the U.S. Amateur and U.S. Open in the same year. And so it's Chick Evans and Bobby Jones. So it started out in Chicago in 1930. We're coming up on a 100-year anniversary of the program. We've put over probably close to 13,000 Evans Scholars through college in the past 95 some years.
Wow, that's incredible. Before I get you to talk about some of the criteria that the students have to go through to become involved with this, I want to go to Kevin now, and I want to just get your thoughts on, first off, how did you hear about it? Were you somebody that had kind of dipped your toes in the sand to golf a little bit beforehand? How did you hear about the program, and what was your sort of thoughts when it first came available, and what did you have to do to get prepared for it?
Right. So I didn't know anything about golf before Mr. Leahy had offered me a job. So it was really just a brand new thing I was trying. So my freshman year, he had offered me a job as a golf caddy. And, I was a bit hesitant because, like I said, I was really clueless. So I didn't really know what I was getting into. But, he was really helpful as far as like getting me accustomed. And as I kept going out there, I got better slowly but surely.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
And I found out about the Evans Scholarship through him, actually. Like, he kept talking to me about it, like, as I kept caddying, but I didn't really pay attention to it. I didn't pay attention to it till last summer because, what freshman in high school or what sophomore in high school was really thinking about college like that, So I just kept tuning it out until it was really time to focus on it. Last summer, he really told me that I had to lock in and get as many loops as I could to get to the amount of loops that I needed. So he put the battery in my bag to really like come back and caddy consistently. Because without him, I don't think I would have, like, even if I did come back, I wouldn't have been eligible for the scholarship. So I'm just thankful for him for like not only introducing me, but like helping me get back into caddying.
It's interesting, John, when you hear Kevin's story like that, because, here's a young man. And I, by the way, Kevin, I appreciate your honesty and saying it's true. Sophomore, they're not thinking about, the future and they're out, they just want to have a good time. And they school at that point is sometimes can be fun, but it can be a bit of a drag too, if we're being honest. But you gave him an opportunity. You obviously saw something in this young man that you said, you know what, I think he could really benefit from what we have to offer here. What was it about Kevin that you saw that led you to that decision to say, Kevin, you need to be, thinking about this and thinking about your future? And then we'll get into talking about what it is that, he had to do and what the others have to do to really participate.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Yeah, it would be part of our responsibility as a director of the Western Golf Association at these clubs around the country. And there's about 400 of us around the country at various clubs. And part of our mission is to recruit caddies, recruit kids who have potential to do this. So I had met with Kevin, and he, quite frankly, it was initiative. I mean, we had, if you remember that, Kevin, we had lunch, four of us, four scholars over scholarship recipients over at Loyola Blakefield High School here in Baltimore, and we had four of them there, and I mentioned it to all four of them, and they were all looking at me like, "What is that? I mean, caddying, got to carry a bag around? I don't want to do that." And when, then Kevin, 2 weeks later, I gave everybody my card. He called me up and said, "Hey, what's this caddying thing all about? Can we talk more about it?" I said, "Fantastic." So to answer your question, Ted, yes, what really inspired me at that point was he took initiative to find out what was going on. And just like Kevin said, what kid who's a freshman in high school, thinks that far ahead to say, I'm going to try something totally unknown and see where it takes me. And, it's the path that he traveled. So yeah, that's what really sparked the interest in having Kevin. He showed initiative, and we supported him all the way to get this scholarship. So
yeah, and Kevin, I think that speaks volumes about you, because again, sometimes it can be a phone call, it can be just some sort of a spark in you that says, there might be something here for me. I need to really investigate that. And, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but you don't know. But until you make that first step, you put that first foot forward, you'll never know. And here you are, obviously sometime later and understanding the benefits now. So once you made that call, once you got introduced to it and you got out there and you were carrying the bag around, it really wasn't that bad. I'm sure after you got used to it and understood the game a little bit better, because you said you really didn't know that much about golf and really didn't have a lot of experience about that. Do you see what it is? Because I mean, obviously I know you're familiar with professional golf now, but do you see why so many people are attracted to this game now that you've had a chance to be exposed to it as well?
Absolutely. So I'm glad you said that, because I was looking at the standings at the U.S. Open. It was probably like, I didn't really watch it live because I was also caddying for it, in a tournament, for those
you were working.
Few days.
Yeah, it was our member guest. Our
you were working. Guest.
Yes. So I was keeping track of it, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Who are the top dogs? Who's going to qualify? Who's not? Where are they actually playing? Now I'm realizing, okay, they're playing at Oakmont Country Club, one of the hardest courses in the world. Yeah. And you see professionals playing your average Joes. It's fun to see. It's fun to see the evolution of the game, how far it's come in let's see, like 20 years even.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think honestly, it kind of has the same appeal as baseball. If you sit down and watch a game or a round for like about 4 hours, then if you really pay attention, you can definitely get some entertaining moments out of it. I think the U.S. Open, especially, I keep talking about it because it really intrigued me, especially since an underdog won. But it's really entertaining, honestly. And being out there caddying, obviously that got me into it, right? Because I don't think I would really turn on golf if I wasn't a caddy, if I wasn't trying to learn the game. It's a shame, because people that have the same mindset as I did before I started caddying, they're kind of missing out. I believe golf is a beautiful game. It's like unlike any other. There's dozens of acres of beautiful land, lavish greens, just the environment, the people out there. It's unmatched. You don't get that from any other sport.
Yeah, well said. And I don't know if you know this. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I can tell you that it's big numbers. But of all other sports, that includes baseball, football, basketball, soccer, you name it, no other sport raises as much for charity than golf does. Through all of the thousands, and I mean thousands, and I'm not just talking about at the professional level, I'm talking about even everyday, tournaments, corporate events, things like that have fundraisers all over the United States, raises literally billions of dollars each and every year for charities, much more than any other sport. So that's something to remember as well. They give a lot back, not just the pro guys, but just the average folks out there playing in that. John, if you wouldn't mind, I said I was going to get you to talk a little bit about some of the requirements. So what were some of the things that Kevin had to do, and not just Kevin personally, but as a general rule for somebody that's interested in becoming involved in the program? What's some of the requirements?
It's actually pretty simple. It kind of boils down to first they need some financial assistance to go to college, and these days who doesn't, quite frankly. But so they need financial assistance for number one. Number two, they have to have a pretty solid grade point average. We like to see around no less than 3.2. 3.5 grade point average. So they have to be a good student and be motivated. They have to show outstanding character, over a period of time, and be involved in a lot of, extracurriculars at school. And then the big requirement is they have to get the loops. They have to get the caddy rounds. We have a minimum of 100. Most of the caddies are getting somewhere between 130 and 150 loops. So the Evans Scholarship is caddies only. If you don't caddy, no need to apply.
Right.
But those four things are kind of the prerequisite that we're looking for on a really solid applicant. And this year we had about close to, I think it was 350, 360 scholarships awarded around the country.
Wow, that's incredible. And it is really a great opportunity for a young man like Kevin to take advantage of that, because again, obviously caddying is a big part of it, but getting a solid education out of this. I mean, Kevin, there's nothing that you'll ever do in your life that will better prepare you than a good education and having that ability to do that. And to be able to go on and do the things that whatever dreams that you have in your heart. And I'll get you to talk a little bit about that, but, because I mentioned earlier what your interests are. But I want to first ask you, and I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here, because I think I heard you correctly. You said that you caddied for John. So at some point you had to give him a little bit of advice around the golf course. Can you think of a time, because you got to know his game a little bit as you were caddying, and I don't know if you did for others as well, but you got to caddy for John a little bit. What did you notice about his game that you said, okay, I think I can help him with this? He's been picking the wrong club here. And, instead of hitting that 7-iron, maybe he needs to step up and hit a different club or something. So did you find moments like that, obviously respectfully, but where you had to step up and say, John, I think you need some help on this one?
Yeah, no, I've never done
I'm waiting for this answer.
No, I'm happy to answer it. I'm not that kind of caddy. There are definitely some caddies out there that will tell you, they will speak up if they think that you're making the wrong decision, you know.
Right.
But me personally, like I said, I'm not really comfortable with that yet because I'm still learning the game. And even if I did, I still don't think I would do that. I'm not. Yeah, no, that's not my personality. I kind of find that disrespectful.
That's a good point, Kevin. Usually he would respond when you ask him. If I toward his his second and third year, I asked him, what do you think about reading this putt? What do you think about the green? Yeah. And then he would get up there and start looking at it, and he would give you some advice. But it was always he wouldn't give unsolicited advice. Let's put it that way, which is great. That's a great attribute for a good caddy, you know.
No, that's perfect. I'll tell you a little inside thing that I used to see, and this is obviously going to date me a little bit, but I used to watch growing up Lee Trevino. And Lee Trevino had his caddy for years. Of course, he's no longer Lee is, but his caddy's no longer Herman with us. But he would always throw back, and he would say, and this is a go-to, Kevin. So I'm giving you some advice here. Is if the player ever says to you, what do you think? You throw right back and say, well, what do you think? How do you think the putt looks from here? And get them to give it. And then you say, yeah, I think that looks good. And then let them go to it. And then if they make the mistake, it's on him. So that's some good advice there is don't give the unsolicited advice. Just say, what do you think? What do you think that putt looks like there? What do you think? You think you can get there with that 7-iron? Whatever the case is, throw it back on them. That way, then you're good to go. What did you learn from your experience, though? All kidding aside, I just wanted to have some fun there. What did you learn going through the program? Obviously, you learned about golf, something that you weren't familiar with. But what did caddying teach you? One, about the game, but about yourself.
Absolutely. So it taught me discipline because just to get there, to get the most rounds, especially in the summer, you might have to get up early, or if you're going in the middle of the day, you might have to, trudge through the sun. And also just like being aware of your surroundings too. I also realized that because, you wouldn't be a good caddy if you weren't aware of, especially if you're carrying 2 bags, you wouldn't be a good caddy if you weren't aware of where both of your golfers are at the same time. You wouldn't be a good caddy if you weren't aware of the green, like how fast the green is, like which way it's going, which way the ball's going to go, just being aware, being disciplined. And those are the 2 main things.
That's great.
Let me just add that too, Ted, just for some context. Kevin lives on the west side of town. It takes about 30 minutes to get to the club, so it's not like he is a couple blocks away and walks to the club. In the early days, his dad had to bring him over, and then would wait in the parking lot for 4 or 5 hours while he got ready to go out and do a loop and come back, and then he would wait there and drive him back home. And then when Kevin got his license, then he would drive across town to get there every day. So talk about discipline. It's one of the attributes you referred to early on, right? I mean, what does it makes Kevin's story special? Well, it's just discipline and motivation to see it and go get it.
Yeah, and that, that's so true, and that speaks volumes again for you as a young man, because again, in this day and age, we see so much of the youth not really finding their way. And this has opened a door for you, whether you ever play, golf at some sort of competitive level, or whether you just play it recreationally, with some friends, or whether you don't ever play it at all. It's opened a door for you that may not otherwise have been opened, and taught you something that you didn't know about a game and about a sport that you didn't know before. So there's so many firsts for you, but at the same time, now you can go through with a little bit more confidence, so that maybe the next time when you are, if you do get an opportunity to carry John's golf bag, you can tell him which club to select, because you'll have confidence now, and he won't give you any flack because he'll know that you've been doing this for a while and you know what you're talking about. So I'm just having some fun. John, let's talk about the BMW Championship. This is something that has been a big contributor to helping raise and fund and that. Tell us a little bit about it for those that aren't familiar. Obviously, the BMW Championship is a professional event, but that's happening up in August. Raised a lot of money for the Caddy Scholarship. Talk a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's a great question. So The BMW Championship is actually run by the Western Golf Association, and the proceeds from the BMW Championship go to the Evans Scholar Foundation. So in 2021, I think I'm trying to think of the notes on that. When it started, the BMW Championship started. When was that? 2007, I guess, was the first one, right?
Yeah.
And so we were lucky to get the BMW Championship here in Baltimore at Cays Valley in 2021, and it was a highly successful event. I think we raised over $5.5 million from that event directly for the Evans Scholar Foundation and for scholarships. And I think over that period of time, since 2007, we've raised about $60 million for the Evans Scholar Foundation. So it's a big marquee event. Of course, the BMW is coming back to Baltimore this August, back to Cays Valley. They just renovated the golf course. I was just there yesterday. It's going to be quite a tournament. They've really toughened it up, and it's going to be real exciting. That, for those who don't know, it's the event leading up to the final cut for the Tour Championship in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's always been a good event, and it's done so much to help. And then there's also the alum for the Evans Scholars, and also other partners and things like that help to raise a lot of money. I mean, you guys have done a phenomenal job using this foundation and the different programs that are available, especially this caddy program that has helped to bring so many young men like Kevin into the fold. And I want to talk about education just for a second, if you don't mind. I just want to switch here. I mean, obviously, Kevin, you had to be a pretty good student getting in here. You can't just, sort of come in resting on your laurels. You have to, work a little bit in the books to get an education and preparation for this and that. But I talked about in the intro that you plan on studying kinesiology. First off, for those that don't know what that is, why don't you share what that is and why do you have the interest there?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to. So kinesiology is, well, some people call it exercise science, but really it's the textbook definition is the study of human body movement. And I really wanted to get into that because, I'm an athlete myself, and my father, who had prostate cancer when I was little, he was diagnosed when I was in elementary school. So most of my childhood life, really, I saw him going through chronic pain, in his back and stuff like that.
Right.
So I just wanted a career where I can help others and myself, just live physically pain free.
Yeah. And that's, that's very admirable. And again, it just, I can't say this enough, but it just speaks to the character of this young man. And it's very evident, John, why, you sort of chose him to be a part of this, because it's, he obviously has the ability to, try new things, number one, but also recognizes others that maybe have struggles, obviously in this case, his father, and says, I'd like to be somebody that can make a difference, not necessarily just potentially for him, but for others that I may come across that may have struggles as well, that, if I can do something to help them. And that again tells a lot about an individual. Let's talk about, because I'm sure you've played some golf now, Kevin. Let's talk about your golf game a little bit. Are you, because you said you're an athlete, so I imagine you're hitting it out there pretty good. Would that be a good assessment?
All right, so let me tell you this, right? I was going to
There we go.
So I was this close to getting a bag last summer and actually going out there and playing. But, I got my license a little too late. I got it in August. So, that's basically when school started. So I didn't really get a chance to. But now that I'm going to College Park, they have a golf course out there. So hopefully I can get out there and play. I've always wanted to play ever since I got in the caddy, because I was out there and I was like, they're kind of making it harder than it looks.
You hear that, John?
No, not referencing him. Not referencing.
Of course, I told you the truth had come out.
No, but seriously. I remember
Well, I think,
after a loop. Oh, no,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say, remember, maybe Ted doesn't know that, but Kevin had to figure out how to get the school in and the loops, and he also was working 20 hours a week in a retirement home near where he lives. So he was working. He was working in the afternoons and the evenings, and a lot of Saturday evenings. So he would caddy in the morning and go out and work 4 or 5 hours in the evening at the Charlestown Community Center. Charlestown, right, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Charlestown. So not only was he doing the school and doing the caddying, but then he had to find a way to find 20 hours a week for a high school kid. That just kind of goes to confirm that, as you said earlier, Ted, the character of this young man.
Well, I can tell you, Kevin, you're better than me because I didn't do that much when I was your age. Through school, I was lucky to get through school. Never mind. But anyway,
I can add on to that.
No, but
if I can add on to that. Oh, no,
yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
So that last summer, especially, I think that was probably like the pinnacle, the highlight of my caddying career because it was absolutely ridiculous. Like I honestly don't know how I managed to get that amount of loops. Like I had to. There were some days where, like Mr. Leahy said, I would like work 2 times in the morning. I mean, I would work 2 times in one day. Like I would caddy in the morning and I would go to Charlestown in the afternoon. Actually, I just did it like last week on Saturday. But last summer, like there was like a time where I had to like request a leave of absence because I had to like commit full time to caddying because I had to get a certain amount of loops. And it was crazy, honestly. I don't know how I did it. And honestly, like, I don't know a lot of kids that would do that because it's such a time commitment. Like, I basically had to caddy, I'd say 3-4 times a week. Mm-hmm. And, like, sometimes I would carry 2 bags. And honestly, that was an experience like no other. I've never been through something like that before. Like, and I knew at the beginning of the summer when, like, around this time last year, I was a ball spotter in the same tournament, in the member guest tournament. And, I was out there for 3 days straight for like a couple hours, and I knew it would be a long summer because, golly, it was terribly hot. Like it was crazy. It's Maryland weather for you. It would be really cold in the morning, and it would be really hot in the afternoon.
Well, I live in Florida, so I know all about hot. So let me tell you, I know all about hot. Come on down here, my friend, and we'll introduce you to some real heat. So you're going to try to get out, obviously, now that you've got your license and you've got a little free time, so to speak. You're going to try to get out there and work on your game. I want to go back. I got to circle back. And again, I'm playing a little devil's advocate here. You made a statement or a comment, and I got to pick you up on this. And you said that, watching, others play as you were caddying, that it didn't, you didn't think golf was as hard as what they were making it out to be. What made you, and all joking aside, what made you, and John, I'm sorry if he's referring to your game, I apologize. But I mean, again, this is the youth. I mean, it's not so hard. It's not that tough.
All my friends would agree, believe me.
Yeah. What is it about? What is it you think from what you've seen? And again, we'll leave John out of this. I don't want to pick on John, but okay. When you were watching players play and what helped you to formulate that thought in your mind that, again, because you're wanting to study kinesiology. So obviously you understand the body and you're an athlete and that, what is it that you think that most golfers don't get that they make it more difficult than what it need be? What is it that you saw? Because that intrigues me. The reason I asked, I've taught this game for 32 plus years and I've seen all kinds of golf swings from some of the best in the world, from Tiger right on down. And I've seen some on the other end of the spectrum that are pretty bad. And I've never seen anybody that came out and said, it's not that bad. So I'm here. I'm all ears. I got my headset cranked up here. I'm all ears. What is it about the game that you think a lot of people make it more difficult than what it needs to be?
All right. So when I said that was the perspective of somebody who was ignorant to the game. Because, like I said, that was when I first started out. When I first started out, I was like, y'all making it look way too hard. But it's anybody who says that, they don't know what they're talking about. Because golf is really hard. Like, if you hit a club even just like a few inches off of where you're supposed to hit it, you can end up in the rough or in the bunker, and it could honestly like mess up the entire hole, or depending on where you are, probably the entire match. So people that say that, they probably never picked up a golf club, or they're just hating for I don't know what reason. But it's really hard. Like, and I was definitely humbled like for the first time when I went out to the range, and I just started off with like I think it was a 4-iron. It's the first club I hit.
Wow.
And I'm like,
that's challenging.
Like,
that's tough.
Yeah. I'm like, golly, this, maybe I'll be quiet, maybe, maybe I'll just stick to watching instead of talking,
Yeah. That's why the good Lord gave us 2 ears and only one mouth, so that we listen twice as much as we talk. It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that though, because, again, starting off with a 4-iron, that's pretty tough, even for some of the better players to do. Yeah. So, hitting a wedge or, maybe a 9-iron would have been a better place to start, to hit your first few balls out there. So I'm glad that you were humbled a little bit. And you know what? I think because you are athletic, I think once you do get the understanding of the game and how it really works, I think you'll probably do extremely well. Most young guys, when they get out there, obviously, they're full of testosterone. They're out there and they're like, I'm just going to belt this thing a mile. And they get out there and they whiff the first few balls and they don't go very far, or they're all over the place. But, you've got a really good attitude about it. And the fact that you were able to humble yourself. So what I want to ask you, and then I'm going to go back to John here real quickly. What do you hope golf does for you moving forward? I mean, I'm assuming because of your age, I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing you're getting up there. So it'd be a little late to start a pro career, perhaps. I mean, there are some guys out there on tour that have done that. But do you see it benefiting you, maybe as, whatever work you get into, as helping your corporate life or your business life? Or you just want to keep it sort of just, hey, I just want to go out and play with my friends? Where do you see golf fitting in the future?
I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way I'm going to be a professional golf player. That's out. I'm 18, so, okay. It would be way too late to start. But I see golf as like kind of like a casual thing. I don't really see it being like a huge part. But I'm going into kinesiology, so you never know. But like my main sport was martial arts, so like I kind of plan to like keep that going in my adult life. Golf, like I said, it's a great game to play as you get older, and it's definitely good for networking and stuff like that. So I'll never rule that out. And I also hope to like connect kids to from the next generation to caddying, or maybe even golf itself, because I feel like it's good to give back, especially since I never thought I'd be in this position now. And like just to see kids coming up the same way I grew up, to see them have that same opportunity, I feel like it'll fulfill me, and I feel like it'll give them the opportunity to have the same opportunity I did.
Yeah, well said.
Well, let me just add too. I think we're really confident that, and I think you can tell already, Teddy, that Kevin will be a great ambassador for our program here in Baltimore. That as he goes through the University of Maryland and graduates from there in a few years, and go back into the city and where he went to school, and kind of mentor and teach some of these younger kids. I mean, I think that's where golf can take them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just on a side note, I know you won't know who he is, but Larry Nelson didn't start playing professional golf until he was 21. So there is still hope. Now, mind you, he did play professional baseball. He wanted to play professional baseball, but so never say never. But I agree with you. I think it's something that you see, potentially opening future doors for you, and being able to, be something that you can do. The one nice thing about golf, and you can tell I've got some snow on the roof here as well. So, it's something you can play well into your later years. And, it's unlike so many other sports. And it does, as I said early on, there's so many charities that have benefited from golf, both from the professionals what they give back to the game to everyday golfers like you and me that just go out there and play in events that raise funds for different charities, whether it's a kids foundation or something, or giving back to the Evans Scholar Foundation as well. John, I'm going to give you some final opportunity and final words here to talk about the program, talk about the WGA, whatever you want to talk about. Let the folks know how they can participate, how they can get involved, and maybe, give us a little bit of a pitch to maybe some younger audience members out there or parents out there that maybe have somebody, that's like Kevin here that would like to maybe look into this. How can they go about doing that?
Well, yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. First of all, I would say if you want to know more about the program, go to WGAESF.org. That's Western Golf Association Evans Scholar Foundation, WGAESF.org. And learn about the program, learn about what we do. As far as the Evans Scholar Foundation, you can donate there. We certainly a plug for that. You can become a Par Club member at your club. Any club, any person at any golf club in the country, whether we have a caddy program or an Evans program, can be a sponsor. It's $250 a year to be a Par Club membership. You get a cool bag tag. You also get a gift from the Western Golf Association. Maybe it's an umbrella or a sleeve of balls or a cap. What we're trying to do is raise awareness around the country. So that would be for anybody anywhere in the country who had any interest in it. That's a good place to go to support it financially. But check in when you're into your community. It's interesting. We talked about the program started in 1930. It's really been a secret out in the Midwest. It's been in Chicago in the Midwest. All the Big Ten schools have got Evans Scholar houses, chapter houses there. They've, we just talked about tens of thousands of alumni. And most of them come from the Midwest. So we're always looking for clubs to get involved. So to certainly reach out to the organization and ask about it. Or they can reach out to you and they can refer them back to me. I'm happy to take any call.
Fantastic. Well, Kevin, I want to thank you as well for coming on and sharing your story. And I know you've got a great future ahead of you. And I hope that you'll really dig into golf, because I think you're going to find it's a lot more interesting. It's going to be challenging, and maybe fast forward in a few decades, you're going to be in John's position, and some young man like you is going to be coming up. He's going to be carrying your bag, and you're going to be able to have given him that same opportunity. And I hope that happens many times over for you as well. So, it is a great opportunity. There are so many things, and I've said this my whole life and my whole career. Golf mimics life in so many ways, more so than anything else, any other sport that I've ever been involved with. And I played most of them at some, certainly not a professional level, but at some level. And, but what I've always found is if you can navigate the challenges on the golf course with some amount of success, and that doesn't mean you're perfect, but you are able to rise up to those challenges, then you're going to do the same thing in your life and vice versa. And that's what I mean by the parallels between golf and life. There are so many similarities. And John, I know you could equate that. I'm going to give you a final thought or two, anything that you would like to say to maybe some young viewers out there that may be watching this. If you want to make your pitch as somebody that's gone through the program, what would you advise them? If you had a group of youngsters sitting in front of you right now that were interested or curious as to what you've gone through, what would you say to them?
Absolutely. So I would tell you guys to, first of all, keep a level head, okay? Like, it's larger than life, especially going to a country club for the first time and, just like taking it all in. Mm-hmm. But if you're just getting into the game, just, take it like you would take anything else, At the end of the day, like, the people that are helping you, they're people too. Even though it may not seem like it because, they live different lifestyles than you. They're here to most of these people are here to help you. Mm-hmm. And I would say put in the work early. Don't wait till the last minute like I did. I had to spend an entire summer just trying to be eligible for the scholarship. It'll help if you're eligible, like by the time you're a sophomore or even a junior. That would be perfect. Instead of having to like go all in the summer before your senior year. That wasn't really fun. But at the end of the day, it definitely taught me one, not to wait till the last minute. Don't procrastinate on stuff.
That's right.
And two, just put your head down and work. Sometimes you just have to put your head down and work for the things that you want. If you really want something, go get it. I know it's a cliche, but that's something I really wanted. I mean, nobody really wants to like pay thousands of dollars for tuition in college, right? So I definitely want that financial freedom.
Mm-hmm. That's words of wisdom, words to live by. And you know what? Sometimes you have to go through some difficult challenges because in the long run, Kevin, it makes you a better person, because you can look back now and you can say, man, that was a tough summer, but you know what? I got through it. And here I am on the other side. I feel good about myself. And because now you know you can do it, the next time another challenge comes through, you're not going to be looking down, and saying, God, I don't know if I can make this, because you know you did it the last time. And it's just a matter of being persevere and just, make that commitment to yourself. And it's really all for you, for nobody else. It's for you. It's for this is your life, and this is your opportunity. A door's been opened for you, and you have one of two choices. You can either close that door or you can walk through, and you've chosen to walk through it. So just keep on walking as the next door comes through, and you're going to be very excited. I'm very impressed. I all sincerely, I joked around a little bit with you tonight, but I had to keep it real for the young audience. But John, I'm grateful and thankful for you for doing what you did to open a door for this young man, because I can see he's got a very bright future, no matter what he does with the rest of his life. He's on a good path, and I think that he's going to, gravitate to golf a lot more than he realizes. And again, maybe he's not going to be out in the PGA Tour, but that's okay. He can, the senior tour is out there too, so maybe you can play on that. But when you get old enough, but in the meantime, get out there, enjoy it, keep working through your education, because that's number one right there. And John, quickly, the website one more time, if you wouldn't mind, as we close off, and then we'll go.
Yeah, thank you. Again, it's WGAESF. That's it stands for Western Golf Association Evans Scholar Foundation.org. WGAESF.org. You can go there. You can inquire about starting a program or getting involved at your club, or you can make a donation there. We'd love to have you make a donation and represent your club.
Perfect. Well, John and Kevin, thank you very much for joining me tonight and sharing both of your experiences from obviously different perspectives. I'm going to wrap up, so hang tight for just a second, guys, if you don't mind. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight to Golf Talk Live. I want to thank my earlier special guest, Pete Buchanan, for joining me on the Coach's Corner panel, and then also my good friend, golf fitness expert, Bob Forman, for giving us some must-haves for this season to make sure that you're in good golf shape. And then obviously to John Leahy and Kevin Flowers for joining me here, talking about the WGA and the Evans Scholar Foundation as well. So thank you guys as well. And on that note, I will see you guys next week right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great week.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.